This was our last day in Taipei. We decided to revisit the Xinyi district since we enjoyed it from our first trip there. We only saw it at night the first time, and we wanted to see it more active during the day, and thought it would be interesting to go back. We arrived at the Xinyi district and we're checking out the basement floor of one of the malls here. I believe this was a Japanese convenience store or a grocery store, so they had lots of imported goods from Japan that I think it's pretty hard to find outside of Japan because it's like Western food. So in Japan they actually make Western style food with their own twist, and it's not exported much outside of Japan, so it's pretty unique to find it here. After that we were looking for a place to eat. We didn't end up eating here, but this is an example of a food court at the mall. So you can see it has quite a few options here. They had some traditional Taiwanese food as well as other types of cuisine. They also had standalone restaurants here, so you can see a few examples. If you wanted to eat in a proper restaurant, there were plenty of choices. This was a underground section of either the mall or just a shopping street. It's actually pretty common as well in Japan, so there would be plenty of connecting kind of hallways underground in Japan between MRTs or train stations and malls, and this seemed to be kind of one of those connecting areas. Now we're heading into another food court, which is just at the basement of this mall. It seemed nicer and a little bit larger than the previous food court, and there were plenty of choices. You can see they have these plastic models of the food to give you an idea of the exact size and the portions of the meals. That's something that's really common in Japan. Haven't seen it anywhere else, but I thought it was actually very useful because sometimes you're wondering, exactly how large is a portion they're going to give, and it's helpful to have that kind of model to represent it. So unfortunately I don't have the prices for the food, but I ended up getting fried rice and a chicken cutlet, and then my girlfriend got some vegetables along with, I believe, minced meat and a rice dish. This is a bookstore above the food court, and it's part of the mall. I actually went into it my previous trip in Taipei, and I'm pretty sure it's in the previous video as well. Back in 2017. You can see here it is more than just a bookstore. It has some high-end luxury bag goods and other appliances and things they're selling. It's pretty similar to bookstores in Japan. They also typically sell more than just books, especially some of the higher-end ones, like Tsutaya Bookstore. Here's the area outside of the mall and the bookstore. You can see it's facing Taipei 101, and it's a nice kind of pedestrian walking area. We were kind of close to here on the third or fourth day of our trip coming back from Jiufen, and it may look familiar from that video. You can see here some examples of the books, so it's not just Taiwanese books, they do have English language books and various things available. I'm pretty sure there was a Japanese section as well. The bookstore also spans multiple stories, so different stories have their own focus. There's also a cafe in the bookstore. That's pretty common in most places, even in the US. I remember I used to hang out at Barnes & Noble's and they had a Starbucks attached all the way back in the mid-2000s. I'd say bookstores are pretty hard to find now in the US because of Amazon kind of taking over that market. In Singapore, ironically, the only bookstore I've seen is a Japanese bookstore chain called Kinokuniya. I'm not sure if it's super common here outside of maybe that type of store. You can see here we're walking outside of the bookstore now and heading towards the Taipei 101 area. That area has more shopping malls and also a nice convenient pedestrian walking area as well. It was interesting here to see a DBS bank. So DBS is a bank in Singapore, mostly a consumer bank or just a regular bank, so it's surprising to see a branch here. I would imagine there's a lot of Singaporeans that visit Taipei, and that might be a reason why it's in such a prominent district like the Xinyi district, since a lot of Singaporeans would be tourists here and traveling and looking to spend money in this area. So where we're walking right now is a main pedestrian walkway between malls in the Xinyi district. We are actually here at night, so if you go back to an earlier video, we had just finished up Jiufen and we were walking at night here. It was pretty lively then, and ironically it's quieter at least when we visited at this time during the day. This is one of the main plazas in the area. It's roughly halfway through the walking street. You can see a large Christmas tree, so that was the same Christmas tree in the earlier video as well. I was looking at their food court since we were looking for a snack, and you can see some of the food called out here that they have, so some Singaporean food, Malaysian food, Hong Kong food. It has to reflect probably the amount of visitors they get from those areas, and I believe in a lot of Asian cultures it's actually common to eat your home food even if you're abroad. I know I think at least in American culture, when you're abroad, if you're like in Italy, you want to eat Italian food. But growing up and also in an Asian household, it's pretty common for us to actually look for our food when we were abroad too. Here we're checking out a shop that sells a smartphone and AirPod and also iWatch accessories. Casetify, I believe was the name. I haven't used them. I usually get OtterBoxes since I drop my phone a lot, and OtterBox is usually advertised as a rugged brand. In my experience, they've done a very good job of protecting my phones against multiple drops. I'd say I'd also recommend getting a tempered glass screen though, so because even if you have a phone case, if you drop it at the wrong angle, you're gonna crack the screen. And tempered glass has saved my phone screen multiple times. I was surprised to see they have Tesla here in Taiwan as well. I wonder when they introduced it. In Singapore, actually, it's only recently that they introduced the Tesla vehicles, maybe in the last few years. They've been clamoring for Tesla for years, but you need the infrastructure such as charging ports, and I think that took quite a long time to get. So this is just inside some of the other floors of the mall. It's a pretty standard mall, I'd say, in Asia. Interestingly, they had a Bathing Ape store inside a mall. I've never seen that. It's usually just a standalone store. Here they have some Taiwanese basketball stuff, so some interesting prints you'd never see in the NBA for sure. Basketball is pretty big in Taiwan. From what I could tell when I was in a random place, even in the airport, they would be showing both NBA and then Taiwanese basketball league games. This particular floor is actually for sporting goods, and so that's why it has this running track theme all around the floor. One of the coolest features of the mall was this basketball court that was just on the top. I'm not sure how to play there because I didn't see anyone playing. And it's pretty interesting because it's a very well-maintained court. The floor itself is rubberized. You can see it looks like it's a Nike or Adidas sponsored court. I'm not sure which one, maybe both. Has a really cool clock here as well on the wall. Maybe it's used for events because I'm surprised no one was playing here if it's just open. We're pretty much near where we ate the Indian dinner in the earlier videos. So this area with the Christmas lights is probably familiar from that video. It takes a good 20-ish minutes to walk through the whole area, just passing through. So even without any stops, for example, it's a pretty big area. I'd say there's a lot to see, a lot of shopping. Here, we're kind of just looking for a drink, and this area in particular has kind of more catered to drinks and desserts and snacks. And so it was a good place to kind of stop for something like that. This area has a pretty cool theme because it has some old vintage Volkswagen vans that serve as the food vendors. We ended up picking this tea place. It's spelled Teamy Tea. I'm not sure how it's actually pronounced, but what I thought was interesting was there was also a shabu shabu or hot pot place just downstairs. It seemed to be part of this chain as well. So that's a pretty interesting combination that you have bubble tea and then you have hot pot. But I guess, living in Singapore, those two things are extremely popular with Singaporeans. Actually, even in Korea or Japan, some form of hot pot is definitely popular. And I think milk tea was gaining some popularity as well. Since the sun was setting, we decided to check out our last destination in our Taiwan trip, which was the Shilin night market. It's a pretty famous market, and I went there in my earlier trip, and we just had to revisit it. That'll be in the next part of the videos, so if you enjoyed this one, please do like and subscribe, and I'll have the next one up shortly as well.